Hello and welcome to TelecomTV. I'm Martin Warwick and I'm talking with Massimo Fatato, who is General Manager CMS OSS Domain at HP. Massimo, good to see you again. Let's dive straight in. What, in your opinion, is the current state of NFV? Is it as all-powerful and all-encompassing as the hype merchants would have us believe?
Well, my colleagues would know me for my mantra that is the following. I always say that NFV, it is not a matter of if anymore, it is not a matter even of when it is happening, it is a matter of how. And this is because NFV brings with it a number of promises to the industry and to the carriers that will have to deploy it. So promises like not just in terms of financials, that is to reduce CapEx, OpEx, but also in terms of the necessary agility, flexibility required to carrier to provide services to their customers faster and with better quality.
Okay, thank you. Now, having said that, can you give us some examples of real-world NFV deployments with CSPs?
Yes, HP has been very active in this transformation, in this major industry shift. And we are active, we've been active with the ETSI by contributing to the shape-up of the NFV framework architecture. We are very active in a number of POC. We have more than 30 POC around the world with leading carriers, so we are already going into deployment. Probably the most notably one, it is with Telefonica. We made recently we made an announcement for a joint approach to this transformation. And to credit to Telefonica, which is, as we all know, a leading carrier in the world, to credit to them is that they took a very bold step, a very courageous step to start the implementation of the NFV, the virtualization of specific network functions, and they made a decision, and they're going ahead, and this is sign that, as I was saying before, NFV, it is not a matter of if anymore. It's happening now, and what we're doing with Telefonica is demonstrating that.
Thank you. Now, given the background you've just sketched in and that great deal with Telefonica, what is HP's position on and in NFV now?
HP is a company that is clearly involved directly in the NFV transformation. As I said, we've been participating, contributing to the ETSI activities, and our capabilities span the full portfolio that a carrier requires for making a successful transformation into the virtualized world, from the hardware to the software, the application, all the way to the services around it. We recently announced the NFV system that is an element that gives life to our open NFV strategy. NFV system is a combination, is a holistic approach to the NFV transformation, and it is a combination of the Helium carrier grade, which is our mother structure, infrastructure for the NFV transformation, and it is correlated by the NFV director, that is orchestration layer on top of the infrastructure itself, and clearly they are consolidated by our professional services around that, both in terms of installation as well as a transformation. And to add to this one, the approach that we are taking, it is definitely a holistic approach, that is carriers that require to enter into this transformation with all its challenges. They could benefit by this holistic approach whereby HP provides all the components as per the ETSI framework. So as I said, the orchestration, the infrastructure, the virtual function, and their management. But at the same time, we pride ourselves in HP to always approach the market with an open approach, to use the same word, and therefore each of these components can be deployed on their own and still provide the carriers that they deploy with the same benefits that they provide as a whole. So that would leave carriers the choice whether to again go for an overall approach, a holistic approach, or to pick and choose the various components that they require for a successful deployment of NFV.
Thank you. You mentioned orchestration there, Massimo. I'd like to ask you, let's get into the nitty-gritty of the technology just a little bit deeper. How do you perceive the challenges that exist in management and orchestration, and what are they? And last of all, how do you solve those problems?
And that's a very important question. That is a question that is coming very often when we meet with carriers. That is, once they realize that the infrastructure, the traditional network infrastructure, can be substituted by standard servers, infrastructure that is, the backbone of the infrastructure of the virtualized world. Then the very next question that they're asking us is, okay, how am I going to manage this situation? That is, I have now a virtualized world. What is that I need to do to manage? And this is a major challenge for them for a number of reasons. So first of all, because, and probably foremost, because if they want the NFV promise to be realized, and promise, as I said before, in terms of agility to market and cost control, they have to make sure that they can manage both the design of the services around the NFV, the management of the services in a way that those run at the same speed as the NFV promises, because otherwise they end up having a machine with two different engines, one fast and the other one slow. That creates clearly a situation that they don't want to be in. So the first challenge is to make sure that the management system run at the same speed in terms of innovation of the NFV. And the second challenge is probably the most important from an operational viewpoint. It is about managing the coexistence between the new, that is the virtualized, and the traditional world, that is the physical world, which, in my humble opinion, it is a situation that is here to stay for a very long time.
We'll move on to that in a second. Can I just ask you finally on that particular question? So when you've explained very clearly, what the challenges are in management and orchestration, and it's obviously going to be there for a long time and needs to be addressed, is the solution a mixture of technology and organisational change?
Indeed. Again, we are focusing on the infrastructure. We start focusing on the management, but there are other aspects that carrier will have to consider in this transformation, and you rightly pointed out one of these, which is an organizational challenge. Today, the traditional carrier clearly has the CTO as the lead of the telco, the network part, which is the largest part of their organization. With the advent of NFV, which basically it is an IT infusion into the telco world, clearly the organizational situation has to change. And we are working with the carriers also to address these kind of elements. And I go back to the earlier question, what is HP doing to support them?
Indeed.
We already, I've already expressed a couple of, in a couple of details about our OpenNFV strategy that encompasses the various components like the NFV system and the NFV director, that is the orchestration layer. But we're also working with the carriers to support them with our professional services, our consultancy services, to first of all design the architecture of the future, whether it is the physical, the infrastructure, the management architecture of the future, the objective architecture, and then help them to build a roadmap to bridge the gap between where they are today and where they're going into the future. And just to give an example, we are focusing, for instance, on the management aspect with our NFV director that fits into our strategy that can be summarized as a service operation factory, whereby we address the carrier challenges along two directions. One is to pre-integrate, to bring together the fulfillment, that is the service activation, and the assurance, that is the service management, in a closed loop, just to shortcut the distance between these two worlds that today is creating one of the major challenges for carriers that have many OSS systems, many silos OSS systems that don't talk to each other. This closed loop between fulfillment and assurance is effectively based on a common data plan, and it is or can be addressed, can be addressed by a single unified console on top of all this. The second principle behind our service operation factory, it is clearly the separation between the service view from the infrastructure view. And we aim at making sure that carrier overcome that challenge of siloed OSS in a way that they can have an end-to-end view of their services, an end-to-end view of the customer experience, regardless of the infrastructure underlying. And we believe that this is a future-proof approach for telcos that will have to handle the hybrid situation, virtual and the physical. So separating this from the service view, we hope will help them solving one of the major problems that they have.
You've neatly come on to my next question. I already partly answered it, Massimo, but as a final question, and last but by no means least, how does HP address in rather more detail NFV transformation in hybrid environments? Because, of course, there is no new network out there, very few. There's not going to be people who are going to be spending that kind of money on a new one. There's no new green field.
Absolutely.
Hybrid networks are going to be there, they're going to be around for a very long time, which one would assume would make full implementation of NFV rather more difficult than if it was completely new. So how does HP address that transformation in hybrid environments?
You are pointing again very rightly to one of the biggest challenges that the carrier perceive, that is, even if again the NFV is here, it's happening, and is start bringing its promises. The reality is that carriers, telco, service provider, have an infrastructure and services to run. They cannot switch off the whole situation to start from scratch. Yeah. And this is presenting probably the largest challenge for them at different levels, not just from, I mentioned before, the service management aspect, but that has an impact on the organizational element, as we said before, on the operational element. So they have to clearly manage to decompose the complexity into smaller elements that clearly depend from each other, but eventually will converge into a flow that ideally, as I mentioned, would bridge the gap between the current situation and the future. But to the point, to the question, the hybrid, how we HP think to address this one. I briefly touched on the service operation factory.
You did, yeah.
And I think this is the recipe that we are cooking today for carriers, based on the ingredients. I hope, I think, high quality ingredients of the HP portfolio that are already part of our offering and are already deployed in service providers, like our fault management, our correlator engine, our service activator. Based on these capabilities, we have built our orchestration layer that we believe is going to be the catalyst to start this transformation at the management level to handle both the hybrid, the virtual and the physical in this hybrid environment. I think the key point here is about where do carriers start from a use case viewpoint. Again, one size does not fit all. There are carriers that are starting from the virtualization of the CPE. Other carriers, in fact, more brave, are starting from the virtualization of their core infrastructure, the core network functions. But regardless of where they start, clearly there is a need to handle both the virtual and the physical. And as I said, the introduction of the orchestration layer that is capable of handling the virtual, but at the same time is built on same principle of the traditional OSS, we think that this could be again the catalyst to start moving some of the traditional OSS functions back into this new orchestration world. And we think that we will facilitate this task, this complex task, by providing the orchestrator with what we call unified console. And unified means not just for the orchestrator, but unified across a number of OSS functions, starting from those that I mentioned before, that is for management, correlator, moving gradually to widen the capability to handle the management and the operation of carrier. And I quote a couple of them, like for instance analytics, that is the gathering and the analysis of large quantity of management data from the network of the services, or security aspects that are so close to the heart of carriers that are trying to monetize the NFV advent.
Okay, well, it is a complex process, as you say, Massimo, and there's that famous quote which is, how do you eat an elephant?
Absolutely.
A little bit at a time. Obviously,
Absolutely.
It's a step-by-step approach according to individual circumstances, but very interesting stuff. And Massimo Fatato, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.